What are the implications for New Zealand from what happened yesterday?
Just a couple of bullet points before that. You've got to admire what is a very successful politician, 45th and 47th president, first to get back in since Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s, a convicted felon, impeached, almost assassinated. You've got to admire that he's a very successful politician. So that's the first point. The second point is he may get a clean sweep, not just the popular vote, the electoral vote, Senate, but he may also get the Congress, which makes him a very powerful politician. In terms of my analysis of the reasons why, the three things that voters were concerned about were the economy or cost of living, etc., immigration, and then abortions, women's rights, and kind of women's safety. When you look at the two eras that the voters remember under Trump's first presidency, real wages went up almost 8%. Under the Biden-Kamala regime, real wages fell. They were negative. So you can understand why people voted for Trump, because he's promising to fix the economy. And that's a very strong message across a whole lot of different groups. And you can analyse why identities change for various reasons, but I think it's really around the economy and, to a lesser extent, solving illegal immigration. On foreign policy, how on earth is he going to stop the war in Ukraine or Middle East? I don't know. Clearly there'll be deportations of illegal immigrants. And for us in New Zealand, it's tariffs. So if he's going to put on place 10% tariffs on everybody's imports, doesn't matter relative to other countries, but it matters to us if we can't compete with domestic production, for example, in our wine industry.
You were just talking about trade and tariffs. It's one thing to say something on the election campaign, it's another thing to deliver. I guess we'll know better after January when he's actually sworn in, Donald Trump. Do you think this stuff about tariffs is real? I can see him having a go at China, but why would he have a go at New Zealand?
Well, he's not particularly singling out New Zealand. It's a 10% tariff on all imports, and the idea is to protect American industry. So it's this protectionist fortress concept that if we put taxes on foreign goods, our domestic producers can benefit. And that's why those car company stock prices went up. Ford and Tesla, for example, they'll be a beneficiary of tariffs or taxes on imports. However, it's also inflationary for consumers who face higher costs in America. So the Federal Reserve will be interested to see whether he actually delivers on that. And once you start putting in place tariffs on everybody else, you may find that others put tariffs on your goods. So you get into the tariff wars, which was a feature of the 1930s. So it's a very bold step in multilateral relations, and I kind of fear for the retaliation that will happen from others to equilibralise the actions of Trump. The other domestic piece, of course, is cutting taxes and cutting debt. You're not going to raise enough cash from tariffs to fund the growing deficit from cutting taxes. So I don't know how he's going to fill the hole between reducing taxes and the existing costs of expenditure. So he's got to make some more changes, which he hasn't announced yet. So, these are all headlines, of course, Michael. And I just reiterate, though, if you've got the Senate and you've got a popular vote, you've got a mandate, a little bit like New Zealand, you'll probably go. And if he gets the Congress, it'll be very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least for the next 2 years, anyhow, until the next gubernatorial elections. Listen, the other thing is, just very quickly, inflation's come out today, and this is something that affects us here. So not inflation, the unemployment statistics are not as high, apparently, according to economists, as they expected. They expect to go 5.6%, 5% over. It's 4.8%. Listen, I was expecting a higher figure, and so were others, as a sort of a proof or a nod to the Reserve Bank that you can drop interest rates more, up to 75 points, some economists were saying. Now that those unemployment statistics aren't as high as we thought, or the sort of economist rabble thought it would be, does that mean that we're not likely to get interest rate cuts from the Reserve Bank?
Well, I think people that were expecting 75 basis points or 0.75% cuts at the next or following OCR decision will be rethinking that track. And you're seeing that market already pull back on expectations. They were too aggressive without the benefit of the data like the unemployment rate, which sort of tells you that potentially the economy is not as weak as the RBNZ and others had expected. So you've got to adjust your information. And the governor has been quite clear in his speech in the States that he's alive to conditions as they evolve. So I don't think we'll be getting the kind of rate cut expectations being delivered that the market was and economists were expecting. It'll be a slower decline. And I'm very sure of the view that we won't go back to where we were in 2021, 22. It'll be a much higher level of base OCR or base Reserve Bank interest rates, higher than was the case before, because of our poor productivity and because the central government still has a structural deficit. They're still stimulating the economy. So, yep, I think the rate cut decline will be slower, expectations will be changed, and people will not get the benefit of rapidly falling mortgage rates, which some had been expecting.